Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of eCommerce Mastery. My name is Ben Gothard. I'm your host, and today we have three extraordinary gentlemen from Media Maven here to teach you how to successfully scale an offer. Now, I want to paint the picture a little bit for you of what you're going to get from this episode. One, you're going to hear the story of these three extraordinary gentlemen. Two, you are going to get a breakdown of the topic today, which is how to scale that offer, including building your infrastructure, getting laser focused on your audience, and then building out that scaling and automation system to make sure it's smooth from start to finish. And then they have a free gift for you at the end. So make sure to stick around until then. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Great to be here.
Wonderful. So what I would love to do is go through each of your stories and understand how you got to where you are. How did this brain trust come together to build Media Maven? And share a little bit about yourselves.
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. I had a traditional career in regular sales and marketing. I've done everything from retail selling to business selling and whatnot. Did that for about 15 years. Found myself unemployed, and a good friend said, "Hey, you got to hop on this whole internet marketing thing." And thought it was kind of a joke at first. My first question was, "How in the world are you making money by sharing cat and dog photos on Facebook?" This was about 8 years ago. And a lot of people probably have those similar questions in their mind, which it's funny. He, now he runs a company called I Heart Dogs. And as a retail brand, they have more social mentions as a retail company than even Amazon itself across the entire web. So very, very large company. But when he first approached me, he said, "You got to do this." And I fought him for a year until he said, "Look, I made $400,000 or something like that last year. And then I made X amount this next year, or I'm planning on making this X amount next year." And I was like, "Wow, those are some pretty good numbers. Maybe I should check it out." Right. But I was still skeptical. My wife did at the time. Like I said, I lost my job and didn't have very much funds to start any sort of online business or whatnot. But he kind of walked me through. I asked my wife, I said, "Can we try to spend a little bit of our income on Facebook advertising?" And she said, "Yeah, if it can work within 3 months, then we'll do it. You can go ahead and continue." So by the third month, I broke even, which was awesome. But by my 6th month, I had replaced our income, and then I started growing by leaps and bounds. So it was real for me. For a lot of people that are trying to scale an offer and they're trying to promote something, they see people that have had success like myself or Bill or John. They see us and they have that dream. They want to try to get there. But a lot of times they're super skeptical because there's a lot of fake people that are out there that are just trying to win a buck off of them. So fast forward in the last 8 years, I've grown from that standpoint of being skeptical to my previous company that I was a partner in. I was the chief development officer. I ran all the advertising for a company called represent.com, which we exited for $100 million to a company called Custom Ink. But through that time period, I was able to spend millions and millions of dollars on ads for tons of different celebrities, and it helped hone in my craft to start the company that I founded a little over 4 years ago, which is Media Maven. And through that, we've had some really successful companies that have come to us. They've seen the results that we've provided for celebrities and brands and things like that. And of course, one guy in a room talking to his other buddy may say, "Hey, yeah, check out these guys over at Media Maven. They helped us out," one CEO to another. So for the first several years of our business, it was all about growing via word of mouth. And now we've really kind of taken the bull by the horns and generate a lot of our own clients ourselves, which it will actually segue over to Bill to kind of give you some history on some of the things he's done and where he's leading with our sales effort in our company.
Yeah, Kenny's an inspiration. The guy He knows Facebook. He knows advertising. The guy walks the walk and talks the talk, but he really knows what he's doing. My background, I'll put it simply, I have 5 kids. Okay. My oldest is 20 and my youngest is 8. And if you've ever had kids in the house, you know that your number one prize commodity is your wallet, because they're always taking money out of your wallet. So about 5 years ago, I did something unheard of. I found an ATM machine off of Craigslist, and I bought the machine, and I hauled that down into our basement, and I hooked it up. It was a little complicated to try and hook up an ATM machine personally. It's the banks don't like it. I'll put it that way. But we got it in our house, and I filled it with $10,000. And I hooked of course, my kids have bank accounts, and so I'm like, hey, you guys want money? You got to go to the ATM machine. And of course, I charge them a fee, right? Who wouldn't charge their kids a fee? But I do. And they've learned money management. And I share that story with you because the fundamentals of whether you're managing your personal finances or your business finances, it's all the same in the end. And that is, you want to be profitable. I've come from a brand called Zao Nutrition. I help manage that brand. That's a $30 million brand on Amazon. And then it also does about $10 million in retail, Whole Foods, Kroger, some of the big box retailers. We were able to take that brand from being just an Amazon only brand to a household brand. And part of that is being able to understand how to run and maintain these ads on Facebook and not constantly get your account shut down. So again, working with Kenny and his team, they understand that. They understand how the momentum behind advertising helps you be successful. I'm glad to be here. I help run his sales. I talk to a lot of clients every day. We're not super expensive. We're not super cheap either, but we do help people get into the game and stay in the game. Thanks for letting me be here.
Yeah, I'm John, and I am glad to be here today. So I don't have near the impressive background that either Bill or Kenny has. I'm kind of a fish out of water here, but I actually know Kenny personally, and Kenny kind of helped me out. I've done a lot in both management, operations sort of roles throughout my lifetime, and ended up in a job where I had some health issues and ended up getting laid off. Kenny kind of brought me on as his assistant as a mercy hire, but got started in that role and just loved working in this. And the more I worked with him, the more we started looking at things, and I'd kind of point out, hey, we can do this. Why don't we automate some of this? Why don't we do this with LinkedIn? I'm currently running our B2B operations, but I've been able to see different things that some other people haven't been able to see, put these together. And so I'm more just on the operations side. Kenny is more of our strategist, but I love working with Media Maven. It's a great team.
Yeah, and I gotta throw this out there for John, is that he's a prime example of people getting involved in an industry that they know they want to grow in, and there's just so many opportunities. I mean, it just in this entire industry, whether it's going down the avenue of trying to promote something on Amazon or trying to go on eBay or Etsy or selling on Shopify. I mean, the world right now, I saw a recent statistic by another friend of mine, that eCommerce, for example, has grown in the last 3 months. It's had 10 years worth of growth. It's significant. So now is like the absolute best time if somebody's got an offer to be scaling it out and growing, because there's more people buying it home.
Wonderful. So I want to thank all 3 of you for being here. And I'm really excited to dive into the meat and potatoes here of the episode. And like I said before, we're going to be talking about how to successfully scale an offer. So there are 3 pillars, and you guys are the experts. Let's hit it. Pillar number 1.
Yeah, the first thing is just having your infrastructure in place. And I'm going to allow John to talk a little bit about that here in just a moment. But from a high level view, a lot of people come to the table not realizing what it takes to run a business. And yes, anybody can get started in a business. but they may not necessarily get very far if they don't have a structure in place. And when I'm talking about structure, I'm not talking about, somebody that's starting out in a business and thinking that they need 10 employees. That's not what I'm talking about from a structure standpoint. I'm talking about whether or not you structure your day, whether or not you're structuring your emails, whether or not you're structuring your time. Like those few things are critically important for any new business owner, and the principles of those go to even the largest companies. I mean, they have to figure out, where are you spending your time? Where are you prioritizing things? And how are you building the system so that it can ultimately grow without you? Like my utmost goal in my business is to do such a good job that I can replace myself. And that may be hard for a lot of people who are very hands-on. It's definitely been hard for me because I like to be in the weeds and in the nitty-gritty of things, but I have to allow other people to build out those systems and grow and build it in such a way to where, I mean, you're not going to get to a $100 million company if you're, always focused in on the little details and trying to be that cog in the wheel that prevents everybody from growing. So John has spent a significant amount of time in operations, and he's really helped us even this last year significantly grow by putting in basically the framework. I mean, you have to think of it as a framework. If you're getting into e-commerce, there's some basic frameworks that you've got to follow. Number one, where are you getting traffic? Number two, how is your website operating? Number three, how can you fulfill on all of those things? Number four, let's say you've got customer support that you have to think of. So you've got to look at all of those like basic ingredients, because they need to be in place, whether you're a $100,000 a year company or somebody who's doing $100 million a year. And so John, I mean, I'd love to have you kind of talk a little bit more about how you look into structuring what you structure for our business, and then also for our clients' business, because that's what he does that quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest things that I think is hard for a lot of people, even business owners, to understand is that when it comes to doing things like advertising, and especially things like Facebook ads they're really kind of the end of the line. There's a lot of things that feed into that will either make it successful or will make it completely fail. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. You've got so many things when you're dealing with e-commerce, like, is your website set up? Is it optimized for conversions? And I mean, as we all know, there's so many things that go into that. It's not just pictures and colors and how your menu works. There's all sorts of things that go into that. How is your offer worded? How are your product descriptions worded? How easy is it to navigate your site? All of those things affect your conversion optimization, and that in turn can completely affect how your Facebook ads do. Other things like creative. You might have an idea of what your perfect customer is, but you also might be wrong about that. You don't know until easy to tell when you've got people coming to your site organically. But once you start running ads, sometimes you hit different spots where you learn that, hey, my best customers aren't who I thought they were. This little group over here that we never would have thought of that might be connected, they're a little bit better customer for us. So you have to be open to those things. And then beyond that, you have things such as just your product offering in general, not even related to your conversion. You may not understand exactly where your price point falls into your industry. If you haven't done that research, or maybe even if you have to be aware that changing your price point, sometimes changing it up, putting it up a little bit helps. Sometimes dropping it helps. You have to understand everything about your product, everything about your industry, which is hard for a lot of people to understand. One of the things we've had to do with Media Maven is when we encounter new clients, we have to make sure that they understand that we run traffic for you, but we don't control everything that causes that traffic to succeed or fail. There are plenty of things that you have to do on your end, which we can help you see what some of those are. But there are plenty of things that you have to do on your end. You have to be willing to adjust and change what you think is optimal so that your Facebook ads can succeed.
Yeah, and I'll kind of interject with that real quick as an example. We had a client that came to us that is no longer a client, and there's a good reason why. Not everyone meshes with a company that's ready to try to scale them. So this one particular company that we were working with, they had a great concept, fantastic concept, but they didn't know how to position it. And no matter how many times we explained to them, like, you're not going to get people to sign up on your email list if you just say, sign up here on our email for an update on when this product is going to come. Number one, they didn't state when the product was even going to be available, when it was going to ship. They didn't incentivize them to give their email first, for example, for a free unit, like to win a free unit amongst all of the people who did register. And they didn't give any information on the front end as to how much the price was going to be. So all of those things in a consumer's mind, I mean, if you go to a website and they're just asking you outright for your email address and they're not telling you why they're using it, you really think that the advertising is going to be effective? It's not going to be. So you have to look at those things and set up your structure on the front end with your offer, with your creative. You need to take a deep dive. For a lot of people who are thinking about selling products, okay, so let's just talk, because this is an e-commerce specific podcast. You have to know exactly what you're wanting to sell. And for some people, I'll give a couple of different industries. We have people that want to sell t-shirts. Okay. If you want to sell t-shirts, do you think that if you launch one t-shirt and test one t-shirt that you're going to be a successful t-shirt company? Probably not.
Absolutely not.
Probably not. The same with people who are trying to drop ship. Let's say they're trying to drop ship from AliExpress or Alibaba or any of those places. If they don't know what they're going to be selling and they put one product out there and they're basically saying, oh, well, I tested this whole concept on one item, you have a much higher chance of failure. You're just not giving yourself enough of a shot. Similarly, if let's say you're selling on Amazon, okay, my business partners run a company that is just promoting products on Amazon, and they do several hundred millions of dollars per year on Amazon. Okay. And they do it by a product offering. It's not just one single product. Yes, they have products that rise to the top, but it's because they take an approach of, I'm going to go all in on this and I'm going to give a product offering. So I see a lot of people that are just getting started and they don't think about the workload that it's going to require. If you're going to start a t-shirt business, you need to be thinking about what do the pros do? Okay. Some of our clients, they're launching as many as, I've had clients that are launching 100 new design concepts every single week. And that's because they're constantly trying to push the envelope. So if they know what they need to do to hit their revenue numbers, they have to have a structure saying, okay, we have 100 new products coming out this week. We're going to launch all of those on Facebook. We're going to have a win rate of, let's say, 10%. So they've got that all mapped out so that they've got the appropriate people in place to be able to scale. Now, bringing that back down a notch to, let's say, somebody who's just starting out, if you think that, oh, I have a great idea for a t-shirt concept. I'm just going to go on a platform and I'm going to, let's say it's Teespring or one of the other print-on-demand platforms out there. They're thinking that they can launch this great concept and it's going to be the next $1 million winner. And that's not necessarily the case. If they want to create a successful t-shirt business, you have to be thinking about what does every other retailer in the world do? They focus on production. What your production level looks like is really dependent upon you and the system and operation that you set up. If you want to be a company that's selling, I've had several students in the past that that, they're making a few $100,000 a year selling products on platforms like Teespring or Etsy or wherever. And they're fine with that. And then we've got other people that, they're wanting to grow to a brand that's doing $20 million a year, $50 million a year. They have to have a process for that too. So whatever your process is, you just have to build it out. So, that's probably one of the biggest issues that I see with any new brand, especially anyone that comes to us with let's say they've created something, they've copyrighted something, or they've invented something that is new to the market. They don't realize that they need all of this support around them to be able to make it work. Some people think that they can come out with a great concept and throw it up on any of the like GoFundMe type of sites, and that they're going to have a winner. And that's not necessarily the case. So structure is critically important. How you build that, if you're doing e-commerce and you're just starting out, I would highly suggest focus in on a small amount of daily deliverables or even monthly deliverables that you can make sure that you hit. If that means launching 10 new products a month, build out a schedule for yourself. Okay, I need to launch 2 products per week to make this work. I need to make sure that I've got all the creative and the messaging behind that every single week, and focus in on doing that on a small level. And that will help you understand the process that you need to grow to a larger level, so that if you do want to grow from replacing your income to building it into an actual company, you can do that because now you understand what you're doing. And throughout that whole process, you find things that don't work, find things that do work. We've evolved as a business, even in our own agency, over the last 4 or 5 years, where we've gone from one aspect of doing things to another, just purely because, okay, well, that doesn't work with the people that are employed in our company. The culture doesn't mesh right or whatever. And you learn through those processes and you change those processes so that they can work. So it's not the funnest thing in the room to talk about especially when you're talking with new people who are just getting started in e-commerce. And you don't want to try to push them down or try to get their hopes crushed by telling them, hey, you coming out with one crazy idea is going to be something that it's not going to necessarily be a world changer like you think it's going to be. Like, you are going to have to put in work. There's work that is involved in this. And oftentimes it requires more work out of you to be able to build something than you ever thought of in any sort of 9 to 5, 40-hour, 50-hour a week job. Just because, and I hate the phrase about like overnight success, where you have people talk about how, oh, well, these people, yeah, they shot up in the ranks and they made all this money. That rarely ever happens. People have to put in the work, the time, the effort to grow anything meaningful. And systemizations and processes is a big part of that.
Well, that was an awesome answer. And I feel like we had such a detailed breakdown that there was really a lot there. And I would encourage everybody who's watching, listening, to go back through and listen to that a couple times, because there's a lot of gold in there and there are a lot of things that need to be unpacked. And it may take a couple times to really let that sink in. But if we think of it in terms of, we're building something that's going to last for a long time, we're building something sustainable, you have to have the foundation. And these things, these infrastructure ideas that we're talking about, these are the foundational elements of your business, of your brand, and you need to have them in place. So I'm really glad we got to talk about that. Now, we've addressed the infrastructure piece, and let's move on to the second pillar here, which is talking about our customers and getting super laser focused on the ideal customer. And I know we talked about it a little bit, but let's really drill down into it because it is unbelievably important.
Yeah, and I'm going to actually defer to Bill on a couple of examples of this from his own experience. But just like what John had said a moment ago, any of us can approach a situation and go, this is my ideal customer. Well, I want to dispel anybody's thoughts about this. Your ideal customer are the people who are willing to pay you and will be happy. Nothing else matters beyond that. You want happy customers. Now, you could easily look at that and go, I want to focus on, let's say, in a financial type of business. I want to focus on people that I think have a 700 credit score, that have a whole bunch of equity in their home, like they're investing in stock markets. Like those could be some of the things that a business would be thinking of targeting. Whereas you could find out that the product or the service that you may be offering may fit better with a blue collar worker who's in the middle of the United States who wants to take themselves from one level to another level. And those are the people who really want to pay you and pay you for your services or buy your product, but you're not advertising to them. And so advertising to the right people and testing across the board and figuring out who really is responding to your offer, that's the thing that you need to be spending a good portion of your time investing in that. And so Bill and I both have done quite a bit in retail. And so retail is very interesting because there is a lot of data and metrics that are looked at on product placements, on turn times, those sorts of things. And the people and the humans that are behind it as consumers react differently to different things. So Bill, I mean, let's jump in and talk about some of those things real quick and how that relates to e-commerce.
Yeah, I mean, Ben, you probably had a bunch of people on your show, talking about different e-commerce strategies, but like Kenny said, like map the data out. I mean, who your customer is, generally speaking, like Kenny just said, but the data is already out there for your customer. And you don't need to go reinvent that wheel. If you know the price point of a product that you're getting ready to launch, and fairly accurately what your cost of goods sold, the output of what that's going to look like from an e-commerce standpoint, whether it's Amazon or other marketplaces, it's fairly predictable. Those lists are everywhere. Amazon, top 100 lists for every category. That's available to every consumer. Super easy to go look at. Same with Facebook. Kenny, the first thing that we do when we take on a new client is we go look at ad libraries. We look at their ad library. We look at similar ad libraries. We see what's running, what isn't running, what's getting shut down. The data is out there. And as much time as you spend coming up with the brilliance for the product that you're about to launch, spend an equal amount of time gathering the data in preparation for launching that product. You will save yourself so much time. Now, I've been involved in the acquisition of probably maybe 24 different companies, ranging anywhere from $1 to $20 million. And the number one thing that gets the companies the higher multiple, and that's what we all want to do when we go to sell our company, is that broad diversification of both channel and product strategy. And so if you look at your strategy and say, okay, I'm omni-channel, I'm focused on Amazon, I'm killing it there, but I got to do something with my website, right? That's where people get into trouble because they're probably a little too late in the game to go back and think, I've got to do something at this point. That's something to think of very early on, right? Early on as you're developing your channel strategy, think, I want to be just as valuable on Amazon and off Amazon. I want to have a robust website. I want to have a retail strategy as well. And all of those things can be mapped out with your product. The data's out there. It's just a matter of you taking the time to understand what that data looks like and go after it.
That makes a ton of sense.
Absolutely
that makes a
agree.
Ton of sense.
It's such a cliche saying in the industry, but the whole phrase of data is king. It really is, because you can't really do anything without data. I mean, you could be somebody who's going in completely blind and saying, I want to spend $1,000 on an ad and push a bunch of traffic there, but you don't realize that what's going on behind the scenes is data. And it's important, especially for somebody that's new or trying to grow a business. There's so much, like Bill said, all of these resources to get millions of dollars worth of information from, and save yourself a ton of money that you won't have to spend because people are already out there doing it. I mean, some of the best businesses that I've seen grow in this industry in e-commerce were not people that were reinventing the wheel or trying to start something completely brand new. They were looking at a market that was already well established, and they were going, okay, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to just tweak it just ever so slightly with what I want to offer. And then they turn into big companies. I mean, I don't know how many times my friend who owns I Heart Dogs has had companies like Petco and whatnot come talk to him, because he's such a major brand in the pet, in the dog and cat space, that he's got all these big companies coming to him for consulting on how he's grown his brand. And he didn't approach it from saying, hey, everybody and their brother is doing cats and dog photos on Facebook. He approached it like, how can we do something that's different? You know, and one of his big differentiators was they figured out a way to donate meals to shelter dogs. Every purchase feeds XYZ shelter dogs. And that's been one of their big pushes. And that's what's helped their company. That year that he did that was the catalyst for his company, I think, growing like 8 times in a year.
Wow.
And it was because that was his unique product offering in a completely saturated marketplace. He made a name for himself that way. So that's super important to do. And I've seen tons of other people that are doing the same thing. Ivory Ella, they have been a client of ours for several years. They're not currently a client, but they were one that, again, they diversified themselves in such a way to where they built their network so wide that they didn't really have to do much advertising after a long time. Like, they had all these different accounts that they'd set up where people were then following them, getting tons of organic traffic, and then growing. But they did so with their pitch being a focus on giving back to the Save the Elephant Foundation. Okay. And so that was their unique offer, so to speak. They were selling t-shirts just like everybody else is selling t-shirts, but they made it tweaked just enough to where people believed in them, people believed in their products, and they were able to move forward with that. So that's, I think, one of the few things that people forget is that there is a opportunity to look at all this data, to go in a bajillion different directions. They could go a retail route. They could go a wholesale type of route. They could even go consignment routes. I've even seen businesses do that, which I don't recommend because I've seen them go under from doing that too. But focus in on where you want to be, have the plan to where you want to be. And if you're not where you want to be now, look at what your plan is for later. I'm a very, very strong proponent for people who set a goal, like, where do they want to be? Do you want to be at $2 million in sales within the next 2 years or 3 years? Okay. How do you get there? What do you need to do? How do you break it down? What things and systems do you need in place? How much units do you need to move? You got to figure out all of those ingredients to be able to get there. And advertising is a great way of doing it, but it's not the only route. Advertising feeds into other things, but it's good to have an omni-channel strategy where if you're planning on focus on running Facebook ads, for example, it would still benefit you to place all of your products on Amazon. It would still benefit you to maybe place your products on Etsy. It would be good for you to run things like blog traffic to be able to get people interested in your brand and make them, again, this is another old cliche saying, it's called NLT, know, like, and trust, right? People have to know you before they're going to like you, and they're not going to buy from you unless they trust you. And so a lot of those factors, what we're talking about on this call today, is really what you're trying to do. You're trying to get people to know, like, and trust you, but there's an entire back end to get you there.
And a lot of it really just boils down to, you always hear the saying in marriage advice, don't stop dating your spouse. You never completely know your spouse. The same thing's true of your customer. What you're doing when you're doing all of this is you are learning more about your customer as you go, finding what they like, finding what they dislike, and capitalizing on that essentially.
That makes a lot of sense. And if we look at the biggest player in e-commerce today, which is Amazon, one of their core principles, if not the very top principle of theirs, is customer obsession. I mean, if you listen to Jeff Bezos interviews and you really learn from him and study how he grew Amazon, that was one of their number one core values there, which aligns perfectly with everything that you gentlemen are saying. And that means it's the way. Like that is the way to do it. Focus on your customers. So perfect. So we have our foundational infrastructure. We've covered that. We've talked about the meat and potatoes of our customer and our focus on the customer and understanding our customer, and that journey of constantly understanding the customer more and using data to do so, and a couple other really interesting ideas that y'all brought up. So now let's talk about this final step, the super fun step of scaling and automation, where we take everything that we've done thus far and we hockey stick it straight to the moon.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off with a couple of very, very simple things that people can do in their own business. Okay, let's say you're marketing product, you're selling products through Facebook, you're trying to drive traffic. Obviously, having good ads is important. And there's several ways that you can get good ads. I mean, you've got Facebook as well as Google and any other platform, they got algorithms to try to optimize things so that they can best run ads. And so, because they want your business, obviously they want you to spend more money on ads, but it only makes sense if it's working for the business. So like some of the things we look at, especially for new businesses, or even existing businesses, if they're doing anything on Shopify or whatnot, with Facebook specifically, there's kind of a graduating scale on how to run ads. And there's kind of different thresholds. So one of those thresholds is getting to 1,000 visitors to your website. Once you have that, then you have some information that you can act upon because you're seeing how people are reacting to your advertising. The next thing that they're looking for is 1,000 add to carts. And those add to carts are critical because now it's showing people with buyer intent, right? And then if you take that information, you can do things with lookalike audiences and all this other stuff, custom audiences, et cetera, that helps you get more insightful data on your potential customer. And then the major thing that they look for is 1,000 purchases. Now, so that's 3 steps. 1,000 visitors first, that's your first goal that you got to get to. 1,000 add to carts is your second, and 1,000 purchases is your third. Once you've kind of hit those, that's when you can start inspecting the data, cross-pollinating the data between those data sets to be able to run more effective advertising. And we do that by, with anybody, whether it's a big client that's already doing tons of volume online or brand new, is you have to have a testing phase that you go through. That testing phase may look different for different clients with different needs. Like we've got clients that we work with like in real estate or finance or whatever, that they may be looking for a lead generation type of advertising business as opposed to e-commerce, right? So we have to look at that perspective. But let's say you're selling apparel. There's going to be a certain amount of things that you're going to want to look for when you're setting up your test ads. Versus somebody else who's trying to sell electronics. There's going to be certain things that they're looking at when they're testing. But the thing is that you guys should be testing. I think a lot of people think that, okay, well, I have my ideal audience in mind. I'm going to take this product and I'm going to put it in front of my ideal audience, but they don't test it on a micro scale. And when I'm talking about micro scale, we may launch ads for one product. They may have 10 or even 20 different ad sets within them with all different variables. And we let those things run and we look for the metrics that are important. The highest metric that we always look for is ROAS. And if you're not familiar with that term, it means return on advertising spend. So for every dollar you put in, you need to know XYZ, how much you're getting out of it. So if you put $1 in and you're getting $4 back out of it, then you're getting a 4 times ROAS. So that's a number that we look at as kind of the holy grail. But the other numbers that fit into there is things like your click-through rate percentage. Let's say you're not running a lot of traffic to your offer, but you see that you have a very, very high click-through rate percentage on one ad versus a low click-through rate percentage on another ad. You probably want to spend more time on the one that's getting the most interest. And so looking at that data and properly analyzing it is critically important. So we look at that whenever we're running anything, whether it's big company, small company, it doesn't matter. It's always about testing and leveraging the data. But one thing that is extremely important that I think a lot of people forget is that there are tools at your fingertips that can help you do more with not only less time, but also less money. You don't have to worry about hiring as many people at the get-go. They can save you, like they can save your butt. For example, there's a tool within Facebook that allows you to set up automated rules. And let's say you're somebody just starting out and you don't want to spend more than $100 a day on advertising. And you have certain criteria that you want to look for, like, okay, if I don't have a purchase after $20, or if I don't have a 3 times return on my ads, or if they've ran and an ad has spent $50 without any sort of sales, like you can set up automated rules. This is all free in Facebook, by the way. Set up an automated rule, and that will automatically shut those off before you blow a ton of money. And so that's a tool that we use within all of our account managers, our junior media buyers. We use that tool effectively to make sure that there isn't any sort of runaway spend. And every client's going to be different. Every brand is going to be different with what those cutoff metrics are. But again, it's a free tool. It's at your fingertips. You can use it to help your business scale. There are other tools that are out there that will help you systematize things so that you can scale. John has spent a ton of time on trying to figure out even more systems for us so that it requires less tedious work and additional human interaction that's not necessarily needed in trying to grow a business. While also trying to, for us being an agency, we want to have communication back and forth with clients because communication is key for that. But there's also things that can be done to help you scale your business and make things easier. One thing, for example, would be like for us, because we're managing multiple brands, is automated reporting. We've gone through pretty much every automated reporting tool that is out there, and John has pulled out as many hairs as he possibly could. But ultimately it's like, okay, what fits my business? How can I make it do what I want it to do to where it can take time it can relieve my time to where I can focus on other efforts that will make us more money. And John, I mean, if you want to hop in here and kind of talk a little bit about some of those things that we've even gone through in the last year with automating and whatnot. I mean, that is a key piece to being able to scale a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, there's always something at your fingertips that you can use. One of the things I've learned since we've started setting up things like automation and just various systems is it doesn't matter what price point you sit at, what you can afford. There is something. There's always something that you can use for anything that you need when you're doing any kind of e-commerce. I think probably I've run into one thing that we haven't been able to find needed, but everything else, whether it's project management, whether it's keeping your team accountable, communication, like Kenny said, reporting, there's always something that you can use. The big thing that we use for just about everything is Zapier. I mean, everybody knows what that is, but just handy tools for just about anything. We use it in almost every facet of what we do, whether internally, externally, we use it for everything because it's one of those things that makes everything easier if you know what you're doing, if you know how to set it up.
And Ben, one of the things to tail off what John just said is I went to, the traffic and conversion conference last year. I mean, when they had it, it was their last one that they were physically together at. Of course, they didn't have it this year. But one of the things that Ryan Dice said at that conference, which struck me, is like, he said, like, I like to do things sometimes that don't scale, and just to see where they go. And I love that. That sticks with me. And so when John, Kenny, and I sit down, we'll just experiment with 100 different ideas. Go out to LinkedIn and try this message and just be very personal with this person. And yeah, sure, we can't scale that, but let's just see how it goes with this and create this lead and see where it goes. And then we try it again a second time and we're successful with it. Then we start to think, oh, you know what? What are the elements of that activity that could be scaled? And that's how we build scale into some of these things, is just by starting with things like John said that don't scale. Just what are processes that we can start with? Where can we go from there? And where can we build out? It's amazing the path that you'll end up if you start with that in mind.
Yeah, and just bringing this even down to a practical aspect with Facebook advertising is when I first started out doing advertising, if you wanted to do retargeting, for example, if you had 100 products, you had to set up a separate retargeting ad for each one of those products. Well, now there's tools out there that some of them are free, some of them cost maybe 10, 20 bucks a month, where you can set up an automated feed of all your products and have it automatically run ads at different intervals to those people that have visited your product. So that's a way of automating and scaling, because now you're able to retarget those people, bring back buyers that want to spend money. But again, it does get down to the fact of learn how to sell something at one level and then figure out how to get it to the next level. You don't need, this is more of an inspirational thing and less of a tactical thing. You don't need to be perfect on the first try. Just get it to where you can make it work and figure out from that point how you're going to systematize, how you're going to scale. Think about it logically. I think a lot of people don't think about things logically. They start thinking so much from a technical aspect, even if they're a non-technical person. Like I've seen students of mine several years ago do this, where they're like, just tell me what I should do with the product. Just tell me exactly what I should do. And they're not thinking about it. They're not thinking about, well, how would a customer react? They're like, I set up my ad to this audience. This is my product. This is where I'm sending it to. And this is the ad image. And then they launch it and it fails. And they're like, well, why did it fail? Well, did you think through it? How would a customer react to it? If you're not, running your advertising or running your offer as if you were a customer, figuring out how they would reply, then you're not logically thinking through it. You're just going through the motion of doing a task and hoping that that task has an outcome that is profitable. So work on getting things to where it works the first time, get some sales going through there, and then start to take some of these kind of foundational things. I call them foundational. Other people will call them revolutionary because they're not doing them. But in reality, people far smarter than I and far more successful than I will probably ever be have gotten to a point where they've said, this is where we have foundation. This is where we scale. This is how we optimize based off that. And do we fall on our face? Yeah, we fall on our face. We make a few mistakes here or there, but those mistakes are great teachers. Just don't get stuck with the mistakes. There's a lot of people that get stuck in their junk basically, and then they don't know how to move past it. Like, always be trying to figure out a way to move past it. I think that is true in business and in life.
Well, gentlemen, I truly cannot thank you enough for all of the information that you shared on this show today. This episode has been really, really heavy hitting. And I love how we started off with educational, we ended off with some inspirational, and everybody's the better for it. And, so I just want to say thank you all very, very much. I really do appreciate you guys coming on to the show, sharing everything that you have. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you for letting us be here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I know that y'all have prepared a very, very special gift for the audience members today. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, and we don't do this very often because when we've done it in the past, we get a lot of people that are hitting us up, and we do have time limitations for our team. But for this specific podcast, we would be glad to do that. Is we have a marketing funnel audit that we've done, and what we can do with that is we can look through and see, are you doing well on your creative on your front end? Is your messaging on point? Are you set up for success with running your ads? Do you need to be thinking about more products, like if you're trying to launch one? So this whole marketing funnel audit kind of goes through and analyzes a lot of those things, and we point out, basically it's a free pointer where we can say, look, you're not doing great here, you may be doing great over here, you need to beef up what you're doing over here, based on our collective experience with running a lot of different brands over the years. So that's something that we're doing. It's completely free. You can reach out to us through our site at mediamaven.io. And for those of you guys who are not familiar with that, it's not .com, it is .io. If you guys want to run through there, we've got a team of people that do that with those audits. You may even get an opportunity to speak with Bill on one of those audits or one of those calls. But I think that you guys would benefit from them if it's something that you guys want to get a second set of eyeballs on what you're trying to promote, how you're promoting it, and whether or not it's just good to have some validation sometimes. I mean, that's one thing I love is when we come up with an idea and it's not been tested, to be able to have somebody come back and go, oh, that's a great idea. Because then that's validation as to whether or not you feel like you're in the right direction. Alternatively to that, you can have people that say that's not a great idea, and you could be the type of entrepreneur that says that's bullcrap, I'm going to push forward with it anyways, and you turn it into a multi-million-dollar idea. So it's good to get feedback and sometimes get that validation, but also don't let it be something that deters you, because it could be that catalyst that pushes you even further.
So, ladies and gentlemen, just to make sure you understand the enormous treasure trove of information that you have the ability to access here, the gentlemen from Media Maven are literally giving you the opportunity to get a free marketing funnel audit. These gentlemen work with millions of dollars of ad spend. They work with enormous brands. They see how the movers and shifters of the economy are succeeding with their marketing, and they're willing to give you advice for free, to give you pointers, show you how to improve there, what you can work on, what you're doing a good job of. Y'all, take this offer. It's free. It's incredible. You will not be sorry. So highly encourage y'all to do that. The link to the website is going to be in the description below on video and in the show notes for the podcast people out there. So again, thank you all, gentlemen, so much for your time. Thank you to everybody who's watching and listening. I will see everybody on the next episode. Take care.
Thanks, Ben.